Chip Gaines built a life filled with laughter, family, and success alongside Joanna Gaines. Together, they became symbols of hope and creativity. But behind the scenes, a quiet storm began to grow. A diagnosis changed everything, turning their world upside down. What once felt certain suddenly became fragile. As Chip faces the unthinkable, he must make choices no one is ever ready for. How did this beloved couple reach such a heartbreaking moment, and what happens next? Long before the cameras arrived, Chip and Joanna Gaines were building something simple in Waco, Texas. It was not fame. It was not a brand. It was a life. They started with small projects, fixing up houses that others had forgotten. The work was not easy. Days were long and money was often tight. But there was a shared belief between them. They trusted each other. They believed in what they were creating. Chip brought energy and bold ideas. Joanna brought vision and careful design. Together, they turned worn-down spaces into warm homes. Slowly, people began to notice. One project led to another, then another. As time passed, their small business grew into something much bigger. What began as local work in Waco started to gain attention beyond the city. Soon, an opportunity came that would change their lives forever. A television show. When their show first aired, audiences were drawn in right away. It was not just about houses. It was about people. It was about family. Viewers saw something real. They saw laughter during hard work. They saw challenges and small victories. They saw a couple who worked together, not perfectly but honestly. As the audience watched, Chip's playful nature and Joanna's calm strength created a balance that felt natural. Their connection stood out. It did not feel scripted. Felt true. With each episode, their popularity grew. Millions of people tuned in. Their designs became widely recognized. Their names became known far beyond Texas. What started as a dream was now a national success. But behind the cameras, life continued to move forward. Their family grew. Children filled their home with noise, joy, and responsibility. They were not just business partners or television personalities. They were parents first. They made a choice early on. No matter how busy life became, family would come first. They held on to simple traditions, shared meals, quiet evenings, moments away from the spotlight. Even as success surrounded them, they tried to stay grounded. Faith played a big role in their lives. It gave them direction. It gave them strength. It reminded them of what truly mattered. However, success brought its own challenges. As their brand expanded, so did their responsibilities. New projects, new deadlines, and growing expectations began to fill their schedule. Days became packed. Travel increased. Time at home became more limited. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Smiles, laughter, and success were all the audience could see. But inside, the pressure slowly started to build. Balancing work and family was not always easy. There were moments of exhaustion, moments of stress, moments when the pace felt too fast. Still, they kept moving forward. They believed they could handle it all. They had done it before. They trusted that they could do it again. As the years passed, their success reached new heights. Businesses expanded. New opportunities came in from every direction. They became more than just a couple on television. They became a brand. Yet even in the middle of this growth, they held onto their core values. Faith, family, hard work. But sometimes, life changes in ways no one expects. Behind the scenes, something small began to shift. At first, it was easy to ignore. A moment here, a feeling there. Nothing that seemed serious. Busy schedules made it easy to overlook. Long days made everything feel normal. Fatigue could always be explained. Stress could always be blamed. But quiet changes have a way of growing. And slowly, without warning, those small signs began to carry more weight. The life they had built seemed strong on the outside. But something unseen was beginning to form beneath it. It did not arrive loudly. It did not announce itself. It grew in silence. And neither of them yet realized just how much it would change everything. But the moment that would shake their world had already begun to unfold in silence. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Life in Waco continued at its usual pace. Filming schedules moved forward. Business meetings filled the days. Family routines stayed in place. From the outside, everything looked steady. But small changes began to appear. Quiet ones, easy to overlook. Joanna started feeling more tired than usual. It was not something alarming at first. Long days and constant work had always been part of her life. Fatigue felt normal. She pushed through it just as she always had. There were moments when she paused longer than before. Moments when her energy faded quicker than expected. Still, she said little. There was always something more important to focus on. Project. A child. A deadline. Chip noticed, but only slightly. He saw the tiredness, but it did not seem out of place. Life had been busy for years. Stress had become part of their routine. Days turned into weeks. And the small signs did not go away. Instead, they became harder to ignore. Joanna began to feel that something was not right. It was not just tiredness anymore. There was a sense that her body was changing in ways she could not explain. Eventually, she made a decision. A simple step that many people take every day. She scheduled a doctor's appointment. At first, it was routine. A checkup. Nothing urgent. Nothing dramatic. The early visits did not bring clear answers. Doctors asked questions. They ran basic tests. Everything seemed normal on the surface. But the feeling remained. Something was still not right. More appointments followed, each one bringing a mix of hope and uncertainty. Each test adding more questions instead of answers. Chip stayed close during this time. He remained positive, often trying to lighten the mood. He believed it would turn out to be something small, something manageable. That was who he had always been, the one who believed things would work out. But as the visits continued, even his confidence began to shift. Late at night, after the children were asleep, quiet conversations filled the house. These were not the same conversations they once had. There was less laughter now, more silence. They spoke in careful words, trying not to say too much, trying not to imagine the worst. Still, the fear slowly grew. During the day, they kept moving forward. Filming continued. Work did not stop. To the outside world, nothing had changed. But inside, everything felt different. Every phone call from a doctor carried weight. Every test result brought tension. Waiting became the hardest part. Time seemed to slow down. The unknown became a constant presence in their lives. They tried to protect their children from worry. Smiles were still there. Routines stayed the same. But behind closed doors, the truth was harder to hide. There were moments when Joanna sat quietly, lost in thought. Moments when Chip watched her, unsure of what to say. Both of them felt it now. Something was coming, and it was no longer something they could ignore. Then, one day, everything changed. A call came in. Another appointment was scheduled. But this time, it felt different. More serious. More urgent. The room felt heavier. The air quieter. This was no longer routine. As they sat across from the doctors, waiting for answers, the silence spoke louder than words. And in that moment, they both knew whatever came next would change their lives forever. And when the doctors finally spoke clearly, nothing would ever feel the same again. The room was quiet, too quiet. Chip and Joanna sat side by side, waiting for answers that had taken weeks to come. The doctor's face said more than words ever could. It was serious. Then the words finally came. The diagnosis was clear, and it was not what they had hoped for. In a single moment, everything shifted. The life they knew, the plans they had made, the future they had imagined, it all felt uncertain. Joanna listened carefully. She stayed calm on the outside, but inside, everything was changing. The words echoed in her mind. Serious condition. Long road ahead. No easy answers. Chip reacted differently. At first, he tried to stay strong. He asked questions. He looked for solutions. That had always been his role. Fix the problem. Find a way forward. But this time, there was no simple fix. The doctors explained the situation in careful detail. Treatment options. Risks. Unknown outcomes. It was a lot to take in. Too much all at once. As they left the room, the world outside felt different. The same streets, the same sky, but nothing looked the same anymore. The drive home was quiet. Words felt heavy. Neither of them knew what to say. When they walked through the front door, everything looked normal. The house was still filled with the life they had built. Their children's voices echoed through the rooms. Toys lay scattered. The simple beauty of their everyday life was still there. But now it carried a new weight. That evening they sat together in silence. No cameras, no audience, just two people trying to understand what had just happened. Joanna showed a quiet strength. She did not panic. She did not break down. Instead, she focused on what mattered most. Family, time, presence. Chip struggled more than he showed. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to fix it. But deep down, he knew this was beyond his control. In the days that followed, life began to change. Work slowed down. Meetings were canceled. Priorities shifted. The business that once demanded so much attention suddenly felt less important. Their focus turned inward, toward each other, toward their children. They began to have difficult conversations. Conversations about the future, about treatment, about what life might look like moving forward. These were not easy talks. They were filled with pauses, with emotion, with uncertainty. But through it all, their bond remained strong. They leaned on their faith. It became a source of comfort during the hardest moments. It gave them something to hold onto when answers were not clear. Friends and family gathered around them. Support came in many forms. Messages, visits, quiet acts of kindness. Still, the weight of the diagnosis stayed with them. There were moments of fear, moments when the reality felt overwhelming, moments when the future felt too uncertain to face. But there were also moments of strength. Small ones, a shared look, a gentle smile, a hand held a little tighter than before. Life had changed. There was no denying it. Every decision now carried more meaning. Every day felt more important. They were no longer just managing a busy life. They were navigating something much deeper, something that would test them in ways they had never imagined. And as the reality of the diagnosis settled in, a new challenge began to take shape. One that would require not just strength but sacrifice. Chip could feel it coming. A decision was ahead. A difficult one. One that would define everything moving forward. And as the reality settled in, Chip faced a decision that would define everything moving forward. In the days that followed, the weight of the diagnosis began to shape every part of their lives. What once felt urgent no longer seemed important. The busy schedules, the endless projects, the constant demands of a growing brand, all of it started to fade into the background. For Chip, the shift was clear. His focus changed almost overnight. The work that had once defined him now felt distant. His attention turned fully toward Joanna and their family. He began making quiet decisions. Meetings were canceled. Appearances were reduced. Plans that once seemed exciting were slowly set aside. It was not a public announcement. It was a personal choice. Each day at home became more meaningful. Mornings felt slower. Evenings felt more present. Time was no longer something to manage. It was something to protect. Joanna, meanwhile, faced her own emotional journey. She continued to show strength, even when fear quietly followed her. There were moments when she stood still, taking in the life around her. Moments when the noise of the outside world faded, and only the present mattered. Together, they began to rediscover the simple things. Family dinners became more than routine. They became moments of connection. Sitting together, talking, laughing, these moments carried a deeper meaning now. Their children remained at the center of everything. Chip and Joanna worked hard to keep life steady for them. School routines stayed in place. Bedtime stories continued. Laughter still filled the house. But behind those moments, reality was always there. There were quiet nights when the house fell silent, and the weight of the situation returned. Conversations grew more serious. They spoke about treatment, about time, about what might come next. Letting go was not easy. Their work had been part of their identity for years. It was something they built together piece by piece. Walking away from it, even slowly, felt like losing a part of themselves. But love made the choice clearer. Chip knew where he needed to be. Not in meetings, not on set, but at home. By Joanna's side, the world outside still saw them as the same couple. Smiling, strong, successful. Their public image remained untouched. But inside, everything had changed. They were learning to live differently, learning to accept uncertainty, learning to let go of control. It was a painful process, but also a necessary one. As days turned into weeks, they found a new rhythm. Slower, quieter, more focused on what truly mattered. There were still moments of fear, moments when the future felt unclear. But there were also moments of peace. Small, quiet moments that reminded them of what they still had. And in those moments, they found strength. But just as they began to settle into this new way of living, something unexpected appeared on the horizon. A shift they did not see coming. Something that brought both hope and fear at the same time. But just as they began to accept their new reality, an unexpected turn brought both hope and fear. As the weeks passed, life did not return to what it once was. Instead, it settled into something new, unfamiliar, fragile, and uncertain. Chip and Joanna moved forward one day at a time, without clear answers about what the future would hold. Some mornings began with hope. The sun would rise over Waco, lighting up the quiet home they had built over years of work and love. On those days, there were smiles, small jokes, and moments that felt almost normal. But other days were harder. Fatigue would return. Silence would last longer. The weight of uncertainty would settle in again, reminding them that nothing was fully under control. Through it all, they stayed together. Chip remained close to Joanna, adjusting his life completely around her needs. He no longer measured days by work or success. Instead, he measured them by time spent together. Every conversation, every shared meal, every quiet moment became important. Joanna focused on strength in her own way. She did not let fear take over her completely. Instead, she concentrated on what she could still do. She stayed present with her children. She stayed connected to her family. She tried to hold on to normal life, even when everything around her felt uncertain. Their home became a place of both healing and reflection. The noise of the outside world faded. Fame, business, and public attention no longer mattered in the same way. What remained was something much more personal. Family, faith, time. Friends continued to offer support. Messages came in from all over. People who had followed their journey for years now shared their own stories of strength and struggle. It created a quiet connection between their private world and the outside world, even if most of the details remained unseen. But inside their home, the focus stayed simple. Be present. Stay together. Take each day as it comes. There were conversations about the future, but they were never easy. The unknown still stood